Our gospel reading for this morning comes from the 22nd chapter of Matthew. Again, we are reading from a time near the end of Jesus' ministry as the threats to his life grow more severe and as he is drawing nearer and nearer to the cross. I'm only going to read from a portion of today's lectionary because the two pieces of it seem really fairly unrelated to me, so I will only be reading through verse 40. When the Pharisees heard that Jesus had silenced the Sadducees, they gathered together, and one of them, a lawyer, asked him a question to test him. "Teacher, which commandment in the law is the greatest?" Jesus said to him, "You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your mind. This is the greatest and first commandment. And the second is like it. You shall love your neighbor as yourself. On these two commandments hang all the law and the prophets." The word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. It is a stock image in comic strips and editorial cartoons and such. The solitary guru sitting cross-legged on some mountain peak somewhere, and there people seek him out to discover the secrets of life that he has discerned, to hear the secret wisdom that only he can dispense. "O great sage, tell me, what is the meaning of life?" And such questions, of course, expect some profound answer, some deep answer that might be reprinted on a motivational poster or perhaps spoken at a college commencement address. But what if our wise sage simply said, "Follow the rules"? Follow the rules? I mean, how boring is that? Special wisdom on the meaning of life should be more profound. It should be harder to come by. A secret. Something other than follow the rules. You know, I suppose that rules are not all that loved anywhere, but we Americans seem to have an especially libertarian streak that makes rules distasteful to us. I don't know, perhaps it comes from our background as a country founded largely by Protestants, and Protestants, of course, split off from the Roman Catholic Church in part over the issue of rules. It's not following the rules that saves you, we said. It's a gift of grace that you experience by faith. Faith, not works, we proclaim. But whatever the reasons behind it, we Americans are prone to think of rules and laws as a necessary evil. And as such, we would like to have as few of them as are absolutely necessary. But if we Protestant Christians, at least, sometimes seem to think of Jesus as our guru who gave us some secret wisdom that allows us a way around the rules, I'm not sure that Jesus actually shares our aversion to the rules. I say this because in his day Jesus was thought of as something of a wise sage, and people would come to him seeking his thoughts on the meaning of life. And on one of those occasions Jesus said to someone, "If you wish to enter into life, keep the commandments." And when he gave his famous Sermon on the Mount, Jesus made it abundantly clear that he did not come to provide an alternative to the law. "Do not think that I have come to abolish the law and the prophets," he said. "I come not to abolish, but to fulfill. For truly I tell you, until heaven and earth pass away, not one letter, not one stroke of a letter will pass from the law." And in our gospel reading for today, once more, people come to the wise sage Jesus. Of course, this time it is opponents of Jesus. They are hoping to catch him in a mistake, to trap him in something he says when they pretend to ask for wisdom. Teacher, tell us, what is the greatest commandment in the law? It is a straightforward question, and Jesus gives them a straightforward answer. Both he and his opponents agree that the law is a good thing, a blessing that brings life, not some necessary evil. And so Jesus does not need to employ some of the tricks and sleight of hand that he sometimes does with his opponents. Rather, he simply goes to his scriptures, what we call the Old Testament, and he quotes a couple of verses. Love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your mind. This is the first and greatest commandment, and a second is like it. You shall love your neighbor as yourself. Now, I can only suppose that Jesus' opponents had hoped that he would grab some commandment and say, do this, and they could then pounce and say, yeah, but what about that? But Jesus says that these two commandments encompass all the law and the prophets. Now, he does have to quote two commandments, though. Some of my English teachers would have argued that you can't have two greatest. You can only have one, but Jesus says otherwise. In fact, I even ran across a translation that rendered Jesus' introduction to his second commandment this way, and the second just as great as the first one. So according to Jesus, these two greatest commandments, loving God with all your being and loving your neighbor as yourself, do that and you will have covered everything. Do that and everything else is taken care of. Nothing is left out. But what does it look like to love? Especially, what does it look like to love with all your being? What do you truly love? Someone, something. I know people who love their children, who love their spouse or their significant other. I know people who love chocolate, who love going to the beach, who love reading a good book. I know people who love sports. Around here, that often means who love the Buckeyes. If someone really loves the Buckeyes, he usually doesn't have to tell you. It's just obvious. Maybe you've got one of those flags in the windows flapping in the breeze as the car drives down the road. Surely he has more than a couple OSU sweatshirts and football jerseys. In fact, a lot of Buckeye fans could probably wear scarlet and gray for days on end without ever wearing the same thing twice. Yeah, the local newspaper knows that people around here love the Buckeyes. That's why they print a game day special section on Saturdays. And the local TV station sometimes preempts network programming so that they can show Buckeye Blitz on Friday night, because they know that those people who passionately love their Buckeyes would rather watch that than whatever CBS is airing that night. And I'm guessing that there are a lot of travel agents that are in deep depression right now over the state of Buckeye football this year, because they know that those people who love the Buckeyes will drop some big bucks to go to a big bowl game. Not being from Ohio, I don't fully appreciate or understand the passion that some people have for the Buckeyes. But still, I think it's a reasonably good illustration, a good picture of what it means, what it looks like to love something with all your being. You know, we humans are created in the image of a God that the Bible tells us is love. And so it makes sense that we were made for love. It is in our nature to love, to feel passion towards another. We need to feel love and passion to be fully alive. But even though this passion is necessary for us, it can sometimes get distorted and misdirected. Passion and love can get turned inward into a kind of narcissism that insists that all the world be about me. Gangs and cults take this need we have for passion, for love, to give ourselves to something else and twist it into something frightening. And sometimes our passion for community or school or country gets distorted into a passion against the other, against our neighbor. Being truly and fully alive requires loving something passionately. People who do not love or feel passion towards anything or anyone seem lifeless and dead. But not all loves, not all passions are created equal, and some are even destructive. Tell us, O great sage, what is the meaning of life? What is the secret that will let me be fully alive? And Jesus answered, if you want to enter into life, keep the commandments. Greatest is love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your mind. This is the first and greatest commandment. And a second one, just as great as this one, love your neighbor as yourself. On these two commandments hang all the law and the prophets. As we gather here for worship this day, we have entered another autumn, and we have entered another stewardship season. Stewardship, where more often than not the big questions are, will there be enough pledges to meet the budget, and will there be enough people to keep the programs going? But I suspect that Jesus would have some very different questions. What is it that you truly love? What love is it that animates your life? What is the passion that orients all the rest of your life and holds it together? What do you give yourselves to with abandon, with passion and extravagantly? And do you really want to be truly alive? And his answer? Fall in love with God with every fiber of your being. And share the same concern and care for every other human being that you have for yourself. Do this and everything else will fall into place. Do this and you will be truly alive. All praise and glory to the God who is love, and whose love becomes flesh in Jesus Christ and comes to us. Thanks be to God.